Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a space where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. So, wherever you're joining us, whether you're in the car listening, you're sitting at home watching together in a group, wherever you are, we just want to let you know again, this is a safe space. We take time to delve into what the Bible says. We like to go verse by verse. Right? For many of us, we have gone through the deconstruction process, right? Some of these stories that we used to take so literally, that used to terrify us, they mean something so much different. And I think that's the beauty of really deconstruction. Deconstruction is a negative thing when you don't take time to reconstruct. And so I think in the process of deconstructing, I think the beautiful thing is when you continue to find the bits and pieces that still fit and you reconstruct new ways of viewing it. And so what we do at Ethos is we actually look back at the ways that it was originally instructed, right? It was constructed this way to bring meaning. And then we pull it back and we say, what could that potentially mean for us today? So that's the beauty of what we do here. We look at the history. We look at the author's intent. We look at context, right? We'll look at the words, what they meant, what they didn't mean, and then we do the difficult work of applying it for today. So we are doing that right now through the book of Genesis. And we have done chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, what a fun study, right? Some of you, you've probably never thought about the Cain and Abel story that way before, have you? You may never have thought of the creation story that way, or Adam and Eve. You might have never seen this picture of the divine this way before. But again, I would argue all of it has been there the whole time, just waiting for us to unwrap it. And so we're moving through the book of Genesis. We're looking at the historical context of that time, applying it for today. We're removing the literalism, the unhealthy literalism, and we're finding the real beauty in the metaphor of the story. So again, we understand this compilation because that's what it is. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, these were not a historian sitting down and saying, "No, when did that take place? What date was this and this and this? Let me make sure I get it right." That was never the point. There was never a historian writing this stuff down. It was literally over and over again, years and years and hundreds and thousands of years of stories being told, stories that got bigger and bigger and bigger. Right? Father Abraham had many sons, and before you know it, he has many, many sons, and those sons populate the world, right? We get so many of these stories, and these stories all served purposes. That was the point of telling a story. There was value, there was identity. It all revolved around who Israel was and who they weren't. The patterns they kept falling in, the patterns that they didn't want to repeat, and the ones they want to repeat. And so when they are overcome by the Babylonians, in 587 BC. When this happens, again, they're marched to Babylon's capital, right? Babylonia. They're marched there. They're in the middle of the capital. They're watching as other civilizations, other countries are also being marched there. The Assyrians and others, they're all stuck there, and they're all essentially assimilating. They're worshiping the Babylonian gods. They're taking on the Babylonian traditions. They're all losing their culture. And what, again, I find so fascinating about Israel is they're one of the few that said, you know what? We're not going to give up our culture. We're not going to give up our stories. We're not going to give up our identity. We're going to hold true to what it means to be Jewish. And so they keep their stories. And the way they keep their stories is through these tellings. And again, they are so beautiful. These tellings, these stories, is what keeps Israel Jewish. Yeah. And so, again, Torah is a response to the fears of assimilation. And this is why the Torah is such a gift for Jewish people. When the rabbis would come out with the Torah and they would walk around, the children, they would just try to touch the rabbi because he was holding their gift to the people. The gift, the reminder of who we are, who we aren't. It was so good. All of these beautiful metaphors and stories and wisdom writings and warnings, it was all there. And so again, that is what Torah was. Torah is a complete narrative of Israel miniaturized through every court story, every telling, every warning, every wisdom telling. It's all there. It's Israel. And so today, we're going to look at Genesis 5. Now, this might even be a little bit shorter today, but what I'm going to share with you is heavy. There is something here that is so cool, so beautiful. It's taken me some time to finally make the connections, put the dots together. And this one I've been so excited to share because this is going to be very new to you. Unless you are a Jewish rabbi, this is brand new to you. And so what I'm going to share, it might even take you watching it a couple times. Because what we're going to look at is there's a literary device for the Jewish people, for the Hebrews who are writing it at this time, that any Hebrew person during that time era, when they read it, they would have made the connection. They would have said, oh, literary device, got it. This is the deeper metaphor, the story. It's told through names. They would have picked it up. For us today, we miss it. And let me put a warning sign. First off, I am not saying that this is a decoder ring telling, right? This is going to be like many people do with Revelation, try to make it a decoder ring interpretation where they try to, figure out future events and that kind of thing. No. All I'm doing here, I'm not bringing out a decoder ring. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to simply point out what the Hebrew words meant, remind you what the device was they use, right? A literary device. And then I'm going to show you what they would have read when they see these names. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Names for the Hebrews are more than just names. Names have deep, deep meaning. So every time you see a name in the story, understand for the Hebrews, their literary device, what they oftentimes did is they would give a name. And this is why taking these names literally, like saying there was a person named this or this or this, we miss this today because we think of history. For the Hebrew people, when they read the name, they see a story, a narrative. They see texture, right? So a name gives texture and meaning to a story that they've heard before. Or maybe it's the first telling, but either way, the name is basically part of the story. The name is giving meaning to the story. Follow me so far? So here we go. I'm going to move through Genesis 5, and I'm just going to bring up the names because really that's all Genesis 5 is. It's like the boring genealogy of Jesus in the Gospels. It looks boring on the surface. When you read it, you're like, what are these names? Why is this important? But when you understand this is a rich, rich tradition, using names as a literary device to show a story, to tell a story, to add texture to a story, that's when the thing hums. Right? So let me share with you the names from chapter 5. Here we go. One of the first names here is Adama, Adam. And as you know, right, Adam means dirt. But the connotation here for Adam is this. Adam is Adam because he is both dirt and ruach, breath. And so Adam being Adam means he is part human, part divine. Do you understand the idea here? He is only alive because of the divine breath that's put in him. See that? And so this is the idea, the original idea for Israel was that man, and when I say man, I'm talking about mankind, man, woman, everyone. We are supposed to be, according to Israel, right? We're supposed to be a blessing to the world. And everywhere we go, we bring life, we bring order, because we're made of both dirt and breath, divine, right? That's a really beautiful idea. Adama, dirt, ruach, all combined into one. Yeah? Okay. Next name. This is Seth, right? Many of us say Seth. If you're a Hebrew, this is Shech. Right, the Hebrew. This word is literally related to literarily related to this idea of putting something in place. So we might say today, ordering, putting things in an order, right? And so the idea again is Seth is this individual who continues on the path of Adam. He's ordering life, but here's the thing: Sheth is he's different. He doesn't have as much of this ruach. It's not mentioned. But Seth, he goes and he gives order to the world, which again, it's a beautiful picture for Israel. Israel, even though you have fallen and you continue chiseling away at wisdom, even though these things happen, You can still bring life and order to the world, right? You still have this beautiful gift, the Torah. You have all of this. You can bring to the world, bring order and life, set things in place. That's the idea of the word there, shith, right? The idea of the word adds texture to the story, and I'll share more of what the story is in a few minutes. Another name here. We have this next name in chapter 5, Enosh. Enosh is actually a Hebrew word again. It's derived from a word that means mortal. So again, remember, Adam is ruach, breath, divine breath, and dirt. That's what makes Adam Adam. But now there has been a bit of a regression here in our story with our names. There is a regression that's taken place. And so the regression is now man is dirt, right? Has taken on less of the divine and becomes more and more dirtish. You see it? There's kind of a cycle beginning to happen, isn't there? Yeah, we have life, breath, order, and then it begins to move toward less and less of the divine, following less and less of the wisdom, less and less of that divine breath. You see it? We'll keep going with the names. Next one, Kenan. The name is derived from a word that basically means like a nest, a safe space where people nurture. And so the idea behind this name coming when it does with this cycle is a really interesting one. The question now is, when man has moved from wisdom and is beginning to become less and less, look less and less like the divine, where does man find their hiding place, their safe place? Where does mankind nest? Is this amazing or what? Yeah. This is good. Where does man find the nest, the safe space where you can grow, right? Our ethos community. Where do they find this when they're looking less and less like the divine? Next word. I can't even attempt to pronounce it. Mahalehel. That's the best Jewish way I can say it in the Hebrew. But it's made of two words. But basically, the two words mean where does it shine upon, right? So where does the divine shine upon? So we understand mankind has no place to rest. Things have gotten out of control. They're escalating. And where does the divine have to shine on when there's less and less to shine on? Right? Man has become so dark. Where does the divine shine now? Yeah? Okay, good. We have Enoch. Enoch, again, please understand, when you look at the word Enoch, this whole idea of Enoch walked with God, when you look at the actual Hebrew, it's not saying Enoch went up to heaven. I'm just going to spoil that right away for you. There's something way deeper going on here. Enoch walked with God. The idea here, Enoch, he's going to be one of the last names that have this texture of the last names that have been dedicated, the name that held true. So in the midst of all of the exile, the brokenness, the pain, where is one that I can shine my light on? And the reminder is, where is one that I can dedicate? Following me? So where is this one? Well, next is Lemech, right? Meaning the name, difficult to say, but basically despair. Because the divine calls out, where is there not one? Right? Is there not one that I can shine this light on? Oh, the despair begins kicking in. Do you see the texture? Do you see where these words are going? Is there not one good one I can shine my light on? And then, big surprise, what name comes next? Noah. So good, right? Noah comes in next. Is there not one I can shine my light on? The despair, oh no. And then Noah is given breath, right? Noah we have next. And again, Noah, the word means to rest. But it's not like to sleep, not what we know of rest as. The idea of rest is, where does the light fall upon? That's the idea. And the light falls upon Noah. Noah literally, I keep saying literally meaning the place that the light, the thing can fall upon. It can rest on. The blessing, the breath of God finally has a place to rest upon in the middle of all the brokenness and the pain and the chaos. Finally, there's a place, a space, a person, right, where order can finally take place. And so Noah becomes this resting place where, again, the hurt, the marginalized, the oppressed, he becomes this picture, this idea of the home Israel can occupy. You're going to have to listen to it twice. Yeah, this is so good. This is basically a protection against the rain, one might say. Yeah? I think you're beginning to see it. And so when you take all these names and you put them into a sentence, and you put them into a sentence using these names as words and phrases, here's what the Hebrews saw. When they read this list of names, this boring list of names, right? All we got from it was like, look, Enoch, oh, this guy must have lived forever. He went up to heaven. That's what most people get from that, which is completely missing the whole point of this chapter. If you were a Hebrew person, you saw this. You saw this. Here is a pretty decent, close interpretation of if you took those names and put them actually, you gave the definition, the story definition, because every Hebrew word and name had a story attached. If you added these stories together into a sentence, which is what the Hebrews did, this is what it might look like. Man was appointed to be a mortal dwelling place. The light of God was supposed to come down dedicating. Death will bring despair, and yet rest will come. I'm going to read it one more time. I want you to think about this. Man was appointed to be a mortal dwelling place. Think about that. In the beginning, man was supposed to bring life everywhere they went. Supposed to be this dwelling place. The light of God was supposed to come down, dedicating. The word dedicating, again, sharing, giving. Where is the light? Death and despair come, right? And yet, rest happens. Rest will come. I want you to think about, what story does that remind you of? When you look at the meanings of this chapter 5, this boring chapter of a bunch of names, here's the image you would get. Right? It's the story of the flood. And again, what an interesting, amazing way to bring in the story of the flood. Basically, what the writers did here, and again, I find it so interesting, they used this literary technique of using names to tell a story. And they bridge the story of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, they bridge that with the story of the ark, which is next, which we'll delve into next week. But they bridge it by telling the story of Israel that can connect to both Adam and Eve and the Noah story. And it's really all the same story. Good? I know. Watch it again. When it makes sense to you, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I never saw that before. That is so interesting. But again, for a Hebrew person, this would have made sense. This is what they would have read. This is what they would have saw. They would have understood the literary device. It would have been like today we have hip hop and other ways of portraying music and sound. Thousands of years ago, they would have listened to this today and been like, what is that? Today we understand. We get the lyrics, we get the rhythm, we get the metaphor. When we do the hard study, really beautiful things unfold. And so what can we take home from this, right? Because this is a really interesting perspective, probably one you've never heard. What do we do with this? What do we take home from it? Here's what I might say. Where do we find hope in the middle of the ashes? Because this is really the story, right? Everything's fallen apart. Mankind has dwindled, escalation of violence. Where's hope, right? That's the call. Where is hope when we keep running into despair? And so for Israel, and I would argue for us, here's some advice I might attempt to put into practice. Number one, when we're in the middle of this, remember that life always changes. Things can get better. Right? For Israel, this is why they tell the story. They look back and they remember their stories. They remember the times and the experiences. They remember the stories, the traditions, and that fuels them to experience hope. And so again, don't minimize, deny the story. It's there. Remember this. Remember that life has a way of turning. The thing you're in is not going to be forever. Another thing I might say is recall how you overcame similar struggles in the past, right? Struggles are not new to your story. They happen. And for Israel, they happened a lot. And so the story happened. Remember that we live in a cyclical world. Things happen, they take place. We go from positive to negative to positive to negative to death to rebirth. It happens all the time. And so if you're in this point in the cycle, just know there's another one coming. There's another season that you will experience. So don't give up hope. Number 3, remember that things aren't as bad as they seem. In our minds, we can build up some really crazy, weird narratives, can't we? We can go worst case scenario on just about anything. But maybe instead of that, hold off. Wait for it. Yeah, wait for it. You got the email that the whole company is going to meet tomorrow. Maybe instead of jumping to the worst case scenario, maybe, and I'm preaching to myself right now, maybe we just stop and we say, I don't know. I'll find out. Things are not always as bad as I make them out to be. Maybe I'll just spend that energy doing something else, thinking something else. And then lastly, remember there are still things to appreciate. In the middle of the ashes, in the middle of the brokenness, take time to just remember, there's really good things happening right now. Are you breathing? You're breathing, that alone, you're alive, right? There are always things that we can think of that are positive right now. There's always something. So in the middle of hopelessness, consider that. Consider that. Here's a quote I wanted to give you, and maybe hit the pause button after I talk about it. Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. I like this 3-part idea here. Be joyful in hope. In the middle of despair, take a moment and say, man, you know what? I'm going to get through it. Find a way to smile. Just the act of smiling changes everything. Take a moment, try to find something to be joyful for, right? And in the middle of that, be patient, right? Things may not turn around immediately. And so know that sometimes those moments of hopelessness, it's a season, right? And a season is not just a day. Sometimes it's a month, it's 2 months, it's 6 months. Know that seasons we take time with. Seasons we have to have patience with, right? Spring will be here again. Patience. And then faithful in prayer, this idea of taking time to meditate, consider, sit in the silence, let the experience really take full fold, right? Experience it fully. Because only then can we detach from the bad experience, from the pain, from the brokenness. We have to experience it first. If we ignore it, we'll never be able to move on. And so we detach after we experience it fully, then we can step away. So good, right? Everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to share some of those ideas. Again, I was so excited to share that. It hadn't dawned on me. I hadn't made connections. And when it did, I was just like, I can't wait to share this with my Ethos friends. So fun. So good. As always, please consider donating. ethos-church.org/donate. That is a tax-deductible donation. Please consider supporting what we do through those donations, weekly, monthly, however it works for you. Our Ethos Living Room sessions, this is so fun. This is where I get to just lead discussion. And I'll insert ideas here and there, but mainly we discuss concepts and ideas. And it is so beautiful to see at the end, we all feel the sense of we're going to be okay. We have a community. This is good. And I think we need this more than ever right now. And as always, hit that subscribe button, click that bell. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. Can't wait to talk to you next week as we begin to delve into more of this Noah story. You're going to see some cool concepts next week. Everyone take care. See you next week.